In the dead of night, deep in the Syrian desert, a convoy of Russian mercenaries pushed forward. Their mission: seize a valuable oil field. For these 500 battle-hardened fighters, it was supposed to be a walk in the park. They expected the local defenders to scatter at the mere sight of them. They were wrong. Death, the blow, run. Suddenly, the lead vehicle vaporized in a flash of light, then another explosion tore through the rear of the column. The convoy was trapped. Before the mercenaries could even figure out where the attack was coming from, the night sky lit up. AC-130 gunships, Predator drones, Apache helicopters, and fighter jets swarmed overhead, unleashing a storm of destruction from every angle. What these Russian forces didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that this oil field wasn't just defended by local militias. It was held by American Special Operations Forces, and they had just called in the full, terrifying power of the U.S. Air Force. What started as a routine mission descended into a hellscape, becoming one of the deadliest battles in the history of the notorious Wagner Group. To understand how this happened, we need to rewind a bit. By 2018, both the U.S. and Russia were involved in Syria, fighting against ISIS, but on opposite sides of the civil war. The U.S. backed the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, while Russia supported the Syrian government army. To prevent accidental clashes, a deconfliction line was established along the Euphrates River. It was a simple rule. Americans and their allies stay on the east side. Russians and theirs stay on the west. Special phone lines were also set up for direct communication. But on the evening of February 7, 2018, that fragile arrangement was shattered. About 500 fighters, a mix of Syrian troops and Russian Wagner mercenaries, launched an unprovoked assault on an SDF base near the Conoco oil fields. This base was several miles east of the Euphrates River, firmly in the American-controlled zone. The attackers came prepared with tanks, artillery, and rocket launchers, and began shelling the base relentlessly. Inside that base weren't just SDF soldiers. There were American Green Berets, Army Rangers, and Marines. As the shells rained down, a U.S. officer made an urgent call to his Russian counterpart through the deconfliction line. "Are these your forces attacking our position?" he asked. The Russian officer on the other end was clear. "No, those are not our troops." That denial was a green light. For the American commanders, it meant the gloves were coming off. Whoever was attacking their soldiers was now a legitimate target, and they were about to feel the full fury of the American military. The response was swift and overwhelming. Even before the main assault began, a Reaper drone, which had been invisibly stalking the convoy, took out the first and last vehicles, trapping everyone in between. Chaos erupted. The mercenaries on the ground, armed mostly with rifles, had no idea what was hitting them. Then, American artillery and HIMARS rocket launchers opened up from miles away, raining precise and devastating fire onto the trapped convoy. As the survivors scrambled for cover, 4 Apache helicopters appeared on the horizon. From miles away, their infrared optics locked onto targets. Laser-guided Hellfire missiles found the Russian tanks, while 30mm cannons tore through the infantry. A Russian survivor later described the horror. He said they lost nearly 200 men in the first few minutes, alone almost half their force. In his own words, the Yankees attacked first. They took 4 helicopters up and pushed us in a merry-go-round with heavy-caliber machine guns. They were all shelling the holy hell out of it, and our guys didn't have anything besides assault rifles. They tore us to pieces for sure. The Americans knew exactly who was coming. As the battle raged, the sky became even deadlier. An Conoco gunship, a flying fortress of cannons, circled high above, methodically picking off targets one by one. Giant B-52 strategic bombers were called in, carpet bombing what was left of the convoy. Those who managed to escape and hide in nearby buildings found no safety. F-15 fighter jets hunted them down, dropping bombs that could penetrate any cover. Even the stealthy F-22 Raptor, America's top air superiority fighter, joined the fray. For the men on the ground, it was a nightmare from which there was no escape. The Russian mercenaries stood no chance. Despite rumors that pilots at a nearby Russian airbase were begging for permission to take off, their jets remained on the ground. The onslaught was so brutal that mid-battle, a Russian commander called the Americans, pleading for a ceasefire to retrieve their dead and wounded. This call confirmed what the Americans already suspected. The Russian military was directly aware of, and in contact with, the attacking force. An intercepted phone call from another Wagner mercenary painted a grim picture. They simply rolled ours out hard. A lot of people so bad they can't be IDD. When the sun rose the next morning, the battlefield was a smoldering graveyard. The entire convoy was annihilated. Not a single vehicle was left, save for one damaged tank and an armored personnel carrier. Of the 500 attackers, estimates suggest over 200 were killed or wounded. On the American side, 0 casualties. Not a single American soldier was harmed. The only injury was a single SDF fighter who was wounded but survived. The incident, which became known among Wagner fighters as Red February, was a humiliating and devastating blow. After the battle, Russian officials and state media were outraged, but they had no one to blame but themselves. The Americans had followed protocol, using the deconfliction line to confirm that the attackers were not official Russian army troops. According to intercepted phone calls, the attack may have even been an unofficial order from Moscow, a reckless gamble to test American resolve. In a bizarre twist, a medal was later created for the Wagner survivors. It depicts a lone Russian soldier, surrounded by flames, heroically firing at an Apache helicopter, a scene of defiance that almost certainly never happened. The message was sent loud and clear. A month later, when another group of Syrian and Russian fighters began massing in the same area, the Americans made another call to the Russian commander. This time, shortly after the call ended, the entire force quickly withdrew. They weren't going to make the same mistake twice. Thanks for watching. What do you think really happened that night? Did the Russian military knowingly sacrifice their own mercenaries? Or was it a catastrophic miscalculation lost in the fog of war? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.